Hey everyone, fascinating and important topic today around third-party data breaches. I see an incredible rise in these data breaches, and what to do is the question. And a true insider and industry expert from Prevalent, Brad, how are you?
Great, Evan. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Great to have you here. Hopefully, Canadian summer is on its way, as it is here in Boston. But we'll talk about the weather later. Maybe introduce yourself, your role at Prevalent, and kind of the mission in the cybersecurity space.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so my name is Brad Hibbert. I came to Prevalent about 5 years ago. I have a background in security and compliance and so forth. I started out more on the development side of things and then transitioned onto the vendor and business side about 20 years ago. The last job I was in was really more around insider security threats and did things around vulnerability management and privileged access management and those sorts of things. And along that journey, we started seeing companies struggle, not just with their internal sort of perimeters
Mm.
or perimeters into security and so forth, but also the CISOs we were talking to were having a very hard time understanding the risks that they were being exposed to through the third-party relationships. And so we thought that there was a need in the marketplace, and I came over here in 2019 to kind of really build out a data-driven approach to help organizations ensure that those relationships were secure and could be trusted.
Wow, such important work. And so set the scene here, if you would. How significant is the rise in third-party data breaches over the last, short number of years?
Yeah, it's certainly just since I've been here in the last 5 years, it's gone up. Of course, you remember back the first one I ever heard about was I think back in 2014 with Target. But since then, and we've been here, you hear about the supply side attacks a lot. The Code Cove, LastPass, Kaseya. Last year, of course, the big one being the Move-It vulnerability that impacted about 2,500 different organizations. So that certainly is driving awareness of the space. And I think, as from a healthcare perspective, Change Healthcare, Anthem, HCA, so millions of records being compromised. So we've certainly seen it on the increase. We do a survey since I've been here every year. I mean, one of the best ways for us to understand the challenges people are having and what we can do to help them from a vendor perspective is just ask the practitioners. And so every year we send out a survey to people that are directly involved with vendor risk management programs, supplier risk management programs, third-party compliance programs, to ask them kind of what they're seeing. And this year, about 61% of respondents indicated that they were impacted by a significant security issue or third-party data breach with respect to their third parties. So that's up quite a bit over the last couple of years, and we continue to see that trend going up and to the right. So it's a little bit concerning.
Yeah, to say the least, 60%. Wow, that's a huge number. Did that surprise you, or was there anything else in the survey that surprised you? What were some of the adjacent
Yeah, it
takeaways?
surprised us. It did surprise us. I think again, it's gone up quite a bit, but we're also seeing that number come out from others. I think I just
Mm.
mentioned the Move-It vulnerability. You're seeing that not just with our write-ups, but I think even the Verizon data breach report that came out earlier this year, right? They started talking about even have a separate talk track around third-party data breaches. So it is gaining awareness. Gartner did a report back in December that talked about people spending more time, more money, more budget on third-party risk management, but in their survey it was 45%. So we're seeing it up across the board from a data breach perspective. I think the other I think things that we thought were pretty interesting was although people realize that this is a challenge, and as you know, when you deal with third parties, you have different phases of that relationship. So from onboarding to offboarding, and different teams interact with those third parties. And so what we found, what was interesting, was that organizations are spending a lot of time identifying the risks at every phase of that vendor relationship across those teams. But there's a gap between risk identification and risk remediation. So there's just a lot
Mm.
of risk being left on the table that we thought was pretty concerning. There's a number of reasons why that's the case, but that certainly is leaving a lot of companies more exposed than we think is appropriate or certainly not desired.
Absolutely. Are there certain industries that are more prone or affected by third-party data breaches, and maybe why some industries or company types are more vulnerable?
Yeah, we certainly those that have are kind of the digital areas, right? So those that they're storing a lot of kind of highly sensitive information or kind of high impact data sets. So certainly Again, you think about the regulated industries are the ones that we see the most in. Financial healthcare is a big one for us as well. Retail and so forth. So, for us, it's really a kind of a horizontal play that the cyber the criminals are going after, but it's usually those highly digitized industries.
Yeah, which includes healthcare, which has been just
Healthcare,
under
100%. Yeah. We work a lot with the
terrible.
HISAC to help with that. We've actually co-authored the HISAC questionnaire with that community to help them
Mm.
identify the risks that could put their clients and their patients at risk.
Yeah, so identifying the risk and taking action. Any thoughts on best practices besides engaging your help? Any tips or tricks or baby steps toward improving their third
Yeah,
party
yeah.
risk management?
Yeah, we've been doing this for a long time, and I think the study itself certainly gets into a lot more detail. But again, we continue to see common themes throughout the years, and
Mm.
I'll say it comes back to the three Ps, and it's process. I mean, I think as I mentioned, we're seeing a lot of people spending more time, money, and effort on third party risk management, but they're still struggling. And I think a lot of that is just the amount of native tools that they're using, spreadsheets and manual processes that they're using, these fragmented processes of different teams kind of working on things with their lens on, but not coordinating across those different teams. And so I think the first P would be around process. I think, if organizations could take a step back and not look at things so tactically, but take a more holistic approach to third-party risk management and kind of bring together that cross-functional team from procurement to compliance to information security and so on, and think about the needs of all those different teams and how they're going to collaborate better together to share information and make better risk-based decisions across that third-party relationship from onboarding to offboarding. That's certainly one approach, and we have a bunch of recommendations on roles and responsibilities and accountability and so on to help with that. But taking a more unified process approach is the first P. And again, it's much more detail we could get into on that. Related to that, I think the other thing that we see, the second P would be around a platform. I think
Mm.
many organizations, when they approach third-party risk management, they kind of take the old whack-a-mole approach, right? So it's I'm in IT, I'm going to buy a product for cyber scoring. I'm in finance, I'm going to buy a product for credit scoring. And so different people are buying these different technologies, but they're all islands of information, right? And there's no sharing of data across the
Mm.
life cycle. So you have information loss, you have gaps in risk visibility, and so on. So I think kind of getting a platform to kind of pull things together and take a more data-driven approach to third-party risk management, so the teams could actually come together and collaborate and not rely so much on stringing together emails and manual spreadsheets and stuff being kind of sent back and forth with emails. So I think thinking about it from a platform perspective and the different needs across the organization would be the second P of that equation. And then I think the third P, and again, a lot more information on the website about this. We're just trying to keep it a bit high level. Would be around the people. I mean, for
Mm.
us, I'm in the third party risk management space. And to me, that's the most important thing everyone should be working on 24 hours a day. But, of course, we realize that teams you're just stressed, right? There's a lot going on, a lot of different projects. And so teams are trying to do more with less all the time. And so, one of the things we are finding is that with manual processes and efficiency, is that teams just can't get the programs to scale where they want them. And so, in
Mm.
our survey, the average number of respondents have about 3,000 third parties that they need to manage, that they rely on each and every
Wow.
day. But the programs, because they don't have enough people, they can only get visibility over about a third of those. And so from a people perspective, what we say is, try to automate as much as you can, ditch the spreadsheets, try to get into more automation, things that can dynamically keep up with sort of that web of compliance mandates and so on that organizations are struggling to demonstrate adherence to. So try to automate as much of your playbook and your analysis as you can, leveraging not just standard automation, but leveraging AI as well. And of course, we're pushing customers to do things like natural language processing. When you're analyzing a third party for from a compliance and controls perspective, you're asking for verification or evidence, right? Policy files, certification files, and at the end of the day, someone or something needs to go through that to verify that things are being done correctly and there's no gaps. And so we think there's a significant opportunity there to leverage AI to help with people with that. And then, if once you apply that automation and AI and so on, if there's still stress in your program or bottlenecks, then don't be afraid to look at outsourcing or leveraging some partners that have experience kind of doing these programs, right? So to me, I think it comes down to those three Ps and kind of focusing on third party risk management with discipline across the company.
Oh, well said. And what's the role of continuous monitoring in this approach? So,
Yeah.
how do
Well,
you identify and mitigate these threats in real time?
yeah, and that's a great question, and I think and I think that's why people need to take a data-driven approach because there's so much information there about third parties
Mm,
that you could leverage, right? It's sanctions lists and enforcement lists and cybersecurity and privacy information, and so there's all this data out there, and you can get that data in one of a couple of ways. I think traditionally, I think people would just use assessments. You would send out an annual assessment and ask questions to kind of probe that they have appropriate, diligence and governance over these types of controls. And I think you still need to do that. So you can't get everything by looking at the company from the outside. So I think you really do need to get in there, ask for the evidence, and try to automate that process. But I think as people try to move beyond the checkbox of compliance and really kind of directly address the concern around risk, I think that augmenting those point in time assessments with real time monitoring to give you that 360-degree profile or risk profile of that third party that's constantly being updated is something certainly that we think that companies should do. We have a monitoring product, and what we're seeing is from new programs kicking off, like in 2023, 2024, about 60% of them are kicking off with both assessment and monitoring to get that kind of full circle view of their third party risk. And that just makes sure that if something happens, like somebody gets breached, there's an environmental fine penalty, there's something that happens, someone shows up on a sanctions list, your team is getting that information quickly so you can respond to it more quickly and mitigate that risk as quickly as possible, right? So ultimately to reduce the potential impact to your business. So we certainly think and see many more organizations taking a more proactive, not just assessment, but monitoring approach to the way that they handle the third party risk as well.
interesting. And how do you typically get started with a new client? Is it with an assessment and then you move into some sort of deployment? How long does this all take? Is it days, weeks, months?
Yeah,
Kind
it's
of
a
get
great
started?
question. Yeah, I mean, so one of the things that we do is, and we recommend for everybody, is not think about third party risk management as a product. I mean, that's it's not
Mm,
going to solve all your issues. It's not a magic, kind of magic pill. But to think about it in terms of the program. And so when we talk to a company, we try to understand what's the scope of that program, right? What are the teams that are going to be involved? We talk about, how again, our approach is to recommend that people bring together that cross-functional team, procurement, compliance, privacy, cybersecurity, get them all in a room to understand what are the requirements, right? And not just from a risk perspective, but from a business perspective. Compliance wants to make sure that you're not violating a compliance mandate. Security wants to make sure you're reducing the security attack surface. Procurement, they want those things, but they also want to make sure you're not slowing down the process. If you want to onboard a
mm,
new third party, it can't take 12 months. Otherwise, the business is just going to circumvent the whole process and go do the thing that they need to do to keep the business running. So, what are the goals and needs of all those different stakeholders? And then we start to understand. Okay, well, now that we understand that, let's take a look at your third parties and profile and tier those third parties. Our approach is, when they start doing that, it's not to boil the ocean. Get the program up and running, show success and expand the program over time. So year one, if you have 100,000 and some of our customers have hundreds of thousands of third parties, we don't say, hey,
mm.
let's
Wow.
kind of start off with doing 100,000 third parties year one, but it's let's work out the kinks. Let's start off with 500 or 1,000. Let's make sure that we kind of work on the workflows. We understand the roles and responsibilities for all the different departments. We're showing success. We're driving that remediation time down. We're improving the intake time as new vendors are coming on board. And once we show success for that, then we can kind of grow that program over time. Go from 1,000 to 2,000 to 5,000 to 10,000. Right? Kind of break through that wall that the companies are hitting with those manual tools. So that's kind of what we kind of approach, or kind of what we position. But many times, Evan, like kind of reality sets in, and while many companies want to take that more proactive, whole kind of holistic approach, they're up against they're kind of behind the eight ball, right? They're up against the wall, and
Mm,
many times for us, we talk to CISOs who've seen themselves or somebody else get impacted by a compliance violation, a privacy violation, or a data breach, and they're saying, well, I really love to kind of coordinate across my 15 different departments, but right now I have a backlog of existing third parties, and the business is asking me if we're at risk, and I'm like, I don't know, right? So
man.
in those cases, we kind of get in there and show how we can kind of focus on the privacy and cyber risk dimension for that particular user, and then show them how over time they could start to introduce the program to other teams, and kind of work our way across that life cycle. So instead of waiting until after the contracts are signed to doing doing your cyber assessment. Is there ways you could do that in parallel to your sourcing and selection and your onboarding process? So again, it's kind of get in there and show success with that one team, and then kind of push that success or grow that success across the business. So there's a couple of different dimensions that we take, really based on the needs and the priorities of the companies that we work with.
Interesting. So there's so much in the media and the news about data breaches these days. I'm just looking here from a few days ago about the Snowflake related data breach. Potentially, I mean, there's a lot of darkness around these events, in terms of disclosure. No one really knows exactly what's going on. But what are you seeing in terms of the implications of some of these breaches? Now we have fines. There's various kind of sanctions. There's disclosure requirements.
That's
I mean,
right.
this is a much higher stakes game than it used to be, right?
Yeah, like I said, I think the three primary drivers for a lot of third-party programs, one is certainly a security incident or data breach is kind of a trigger point for many companies to kind of get them moving. But I think just the complexity of the regulatory environment as well. Again, you can't just wash your hands of your obligations when you start to kind of rely on more third parties. Right. So whether that's for data privacy or the new supply chain requirements coming online in Germany, or, even now you have new AI acts coming on board around artificial intelligence, right? Starting in Europe, and you're going to see the same thing follow in North America as well. So there's this just deep, complexity of compliance that people need to consider as well. And on top of that, you just have the business disruption. If you have one of your suppliers can't get a part and it brings your pipeline of delivery to a halt, it certainly doesn't look good for your business, right? So there's brand reputation, customer loss, and so on. So I think all of these things are certainly important. From a data breach perspective, I think fines, from my perspective, the top three things that the companies tell us they're worried about. One, it's fines. From a healthcare perspective, it could be loss of a certification, which of course could mean a significant impact for you to kind of get new customers or lose existing customers. And then it's really business disruption that can drive that. So, but we're certainly seeing the impact on the increase. Again, not just the impact from data breaches, but from fines and negative news and those sorts of things. And again, we're not the only ones that are seeing it. Gartner and others are kind of echoing similar findings. So it's again, for us, I think it's a challenge. It's one that we want to take on with our clients, and I think clients they're at the point now. And if you take a look at things like the Gartner hype cycles, where it talks about the adoption of technologies and like third-party risk management, supply chain risk management, they're kind of at the cusp of going mainstream, because I think customers are just frustrated and fatigued trying to do things the kind of the same old way that they've been doing them. It's just not working for them.
Yes, it's definitely not working. That's for sure. And can you talk about your customers at all? I mean, most customers, they don't necessarily want to be talked about, but can you, pick a favorite child or talk about the kinds of companies you're working with? I assume all over North America and the world.
We have global companies, of course. So we have a lot of our companies in North America, a lot in Western Europe. Two partnerships. We have global reach as well around the globe. So again, for us, from a technology perspective, it's a pretty horizontal play. We have, large, manufacturing companies, large retail companies, of course, lots of insurance and banking. So, again, typically, anybody sort of 1,000 employees and above see a lot of value in the solution. So upper mid market to enterprise, and of course they have vendors all over the world, and so we support them, with the technology and with the support that we provide. And we do have a mix. We have some that are just focusing on the cyber and privacy risk, dimension. I'd say, from our history, I'd say about 80% of our customers start with cyber because I think thinking back where third-party risk management or VRM came from, it was kind of securing the IT vendors, and so much of that is managed through the IT departments and through the CISO office, if you will. But I think more and more over the last couple of years, we've started seeing this more holistic approach, and so procurement teams working with compliance teams, working with cyber and privacy teams, and I do think we're seeing that more and more. But we're certainly seeing Europe leading the way for that, kind of taking this more holistic approach, and I think that is, it's really a result of or the effect of just the number of compliance regulations that they have over there around non-cyber, right? So business resilience and operational resilience, DORA, some of the other compliance mandates that I mentioned earlier. So we certainly see all shapes and sizes. It certainly is something that I think is impacting all industries. And again, I think people are continuing to struggle and trying to get ahead of this. Certainly, third parties is an attack vector from a cyber criminal perspective, but not just that. I do think people are trying to keep their heads above water with respect to these compliance and other regulations coming on board.
Yeah, that's for sure. And in terms of the big direction you're headed, you mentioned AI. It sounds like AI and machine intelligence is going to play a huge role in the future of your
That's
platform.
right.
Or yeah,
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, that's a great. Again, for us, as I mentioned, that third P was people and automation and so forth.
mm,
And one of the areas around that we continue to press on is working with people to automate their risk playbooks and kind of make those more cognitive level decisions with human oversight, right? To help kind of offload the manual efforts there. We do send out a survey that also includes kind of where people are at with AI. I think
mm,
this year, our respondents indicated that only about 5% are kind of actively using AI within their third-party risk programs today. I think that might be higher because, of course, a lot of people use machine learning and stuff behind the scenes and don't really think about that as cool AI anymore. They're thinking more in terms of generative AI and those sorts of things, right? But about 5% indicated that they're actively using AI within the programs today. Just over 60% said they're examining the use cases of using AI to help kind of look through this large data lake, right, of all this risk information. And about 25% aren't even considering it just because their organizations don't have an AI policy yet. And so, again, one of the things that I would recommend for a lot of companies trying to get ahead of this AI risk is to work with their company on getting an AI policy out there. Because if you don't give directions to people, then you're going to see AI sprawl, like we saw the VM sprawl, where businesses are going to start adopting it, without the direction of the company. So we certainly think there's a lot of opportunity there, and we're investing quite heavily in that area.
fantastic. So what's on your radar for the next couple of months? I assume enjoying the beautiful Canadian summer, but any other trips, travel, events coming up on your radar?
Yeah, what we're always talking to clients, so I'm looking forward to getting out there and talking to some clients. I know it's tough sometimes, clients taking holidays as well, but certainly love getting in front of some customers. We have a couple of marketing events where we bring customers together and talk about their challenges and those sorts of things. So doing a lot of those, and being up in Canada, I got a couple of months here to enjoy the summertime. So try to spend some
Literally
time with the
too.
wife and kids. And
Yes,
yeah,
yes, I get it.
exactly. Yeah. So that's it. So other than that, just live and breathe and everything third party risk. Other than that, so
Well, I appreciate your enthusiasm and
yeah.
all the insight, and I encourage everyone to check out the third-party data breach report. Really great analysis and insight. I think it's free, just available on the website, if I'm correct. So people can pull it down.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's on the website, www.prevalent.net. And of course, it gets into a lot more detail than I did on the call today. A lot more smarter people kind of write those reports behind the scenes. So you can leverage some of that. And of course, there's other resources on the website you can enjoy as well.
Thanks so much. Well, and congratulations on your success and the great work you're doing. Much needed help and support. Thanks so much, Brad, and thanks everyone for watching.
Great. Thank you so
Take
much
care.
for having me on the show. Have a great day.